Hey guys, what's going on? It's Josh, Strong in Costume, and today we're back with part 2 of the Captain America First Avenger YouTube build here. As you can see, or you might notice, I've already kind of started a light weather here on the suit, and I thought I would kind of take you guys through the process, or at least my process of weathering for this particular method, and a lot of methods that I use for suit weathering. I really like airbrush weathering. Now again, as I probably have mentioned before in a lot of my other videos, don't take this as gospel. There's a million ways to do anything. This is just my process and what seems to work for me. So I'm gonna show you step by step what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna do a little bit of airbrushing on camera just to kind of give you guys a brief look, and hopefully kind of you'll be able to use this as a guide or a tutorial if you wanna use the same kind of method on your first Avenger suit, or really any suit weathering that you wanna do if you wanna do it via airbrush weathering. So let's dive right in. Alright, so obviously the first thing you're going to need if you want to do airbrush weathering is an airbrush and a compressor. This particular one I got on Amazon for about 90 bucks. It was on sale for Prime Day. I think originally it's around $130, $140. I've used a different airbrush machine and compressor for the last part of like 3 or 4 years, and it finally shit the bed, and I decided to replace it. And so far I'm really liking the results of this one, and I'll drop a link in the description below. Alright, next up we are going to go through ink versus paint. Now personally, I don't really like weathering with watered down or diluted paint. I just think you get better control using ink and isopropyl alcohol, which is what I thin my ink with. Again, this is not gospel, this is just what works for me. I've heard plenty of people, I know plenty of people that also thin out paint and have really great results. I've tried it, I just prefer, for my method, how I work, I prefer ink. Typically, I pretty much only use exclusively FW ink. I really like this brand quite a bit. I was not able to get my hand on a brown in time, so I am using a different brand here. This is just something I got at my local craft store. It also works really well. I've done some preliminary weathering already on the suit, kind of off camera, just to kind of test out the new airbrush kit, and it's really, really nice. So, just to kind of walk you through the process, okay, we've already put some light gray on the suit off camera. I already put a little bit of the burnt umber kind of brown tones on the suit off camera. Again, when you are doing anything, whether it's ink, whether it's paint, you should always thin or dilute it, in my opinion, just because it, one, kind of dulls down the opacity of the ink or the paint and will give you more opportunities to do these things in layers. And really, I find it's best to work these things in layers because you can always add another layer. You can always go heavier if you desire, right? Like if you do your first pass through and you're like, it's not quite there yet, I think I want it a little bit more dirty, a little bit more grungy, or I want things to be highlighted a little differently depending on what kind of suit you're doing and what you're doing. You know, you're best working in layers, opposed to if you go really, really heavy from the get-go and you're like, whoa, I messed up, this is too dark, this is not what I was going for. Now you gotta try to kind of knock that down somehow, or use fabric paint and repaint your entire suit, and that's just a nightmare. So this is the way to go. Alright, so now we have our container here, and this hooks up to our airbrush. Alright, and I'm just gonna clean this out just a little bit more here. Shake out some of that brown that was left over. You know, you don't want to mix those tones unless that's what you're doing. Shake this up, get rid of it. Nice and clean. And it's always a really good idea to make sure that this is clean. Bleed out any air in your airbrush line in your hose if you are not using it for the first time. Make sure, you know, you don't want any buildup of air in there because you don't want any splatter, and that can happen. So we're gonna lay down some more gray on the base of the suit. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this and you're gonna do a couple of drops here. Now, I'm sure there's probably some sort of exact science and ratio. I just kind of eyeball it. I do about a quarter filled with ink, and then fill the rest with isopropyl alcohol. And you can use 70, you can use 50, you can use 90, doesn't particularly matter. I typically use 70. That's just what I've had the best luck with, but I don't think it honestly really matters. All right, so now we are going to attach our airbrush to this here like so. This just screws on. Make sure it's nice and tight. Make sure your hose connection is good. You don't want anything splattering out while you're close to your suit. And we are gonna fire up the compressor. So as this fires up, you'll notice it's rising, and we want the gauge to get to between 50 and 60 PSI, and then we can start our airbrushing. All right, so now we are gonna start airbrushing. Now, first things first, what I always like to do is use your hand, just like so, and kind of get a gauge of that pressure, of how smooth you want this to come out. Because again, work in layers. You never want to go too heavy and then have to try to knock it back or dial it back via, wiping it down with isopropyl alcohol or fabric paint and completely repainting. So I think we're good here. You can see I'm going nice and light, but you can see there's the ink. And this cleans off really, really well. So let's dive in. For this particular weathering, I'm not going for anything screen accurate. I just want to give the suit some mileage. As you can see, I've already kind of hit it with some gray and some brown. And now I want to just go through with the gray and kind of even it up, blend some things in. So I'm just kind of dusting the suit, trying to knock back that white from looking so perfect here. And that's really the goal. Now, with any particular suit, any of the cap suits, there's always a few different looks. Like if you were to say, for instance, Captain America Civil War and Endgame, if you look at the pieces that are here in the torso on those suits, they don't really look so much weathered. They're a little bit more of what I call a uniformic weather, and it's almost like, to me, as if the design team used an airbrush that did weather it, but also that they went through around the edges of those pieces and kind of accentuated them with airbrushing and weathering and kind of brought some highlights throughout the suit. And I've done that with my Endgame suits and my Civil War suits in the past, and I've done it on commission for a handful of caps. And it's honestly one of my favorite ones to do, because it is a little bit more fun in the sense that it is a little bit more uniformic. You're trying to get it a little bit closer to what it looks like on screen, opposed to this. Like I said, I'm not going for screen accuracy. I'm just trying to give Cap some mileage here, and make him look like he's been through some battle, which I think we're doing really nicely. So now that torso, as you can see, is looking really nice. It's looking very, very grungy. It looks like it's been through some battle. So now really what we're gonna do is I'm gonna hit this back panel here underneath the armpit and the back, make sure that that's good. And I'm also gonna start focusing here on the arm. Now, the other thing I wanna mention is I particularly really like doing this stuff on a mannequin. But that being said, it is very important when you're done, and I stress this, and I can't stress this enough, when the suit is fully dry, and you're gonna wanna let this, air dry, outside, inside, doesn't quite matter. Luckily, airbrush ink does not smell. It's not like spray paint, so you could even do this inside in your garage if you wanted, instead of outside. But once it's completely dry, then you are going to want to take the suit off the mannequin and just lift any areas that might have been hard to reach on in between, like underneath armpits and things of that nature. Just to make sure that you've kind of gotten everything. You don't want to be at a photo shoot and lean into a pose and have a perfectly pristine area where the rest looks very worn and beat to shit. You don't want to look silly. So again, like I said, this is just what works for me. I'm not saying that this is the best way or right way to do it. There's a lot of different methods that you can use for any of this stuff. Like I said, this is just kind of what's always worked for me. I really like airbrushing. I really like the control that airbrushing brings to weathering. So yeah. And you'll notice I'm not really using any particular like movement or anything. Now, like, you know, when I mentioned those Civil War Endgame kind of things, you do want to move in a more controlled movement. Like if we were going to highlight these pieces, I don't want to do that here, but you'd hold this down and you'd kind of go up and down around the seam lines here, right, until you have that desired look that you want. Then you'd go across the bottom, then back up and down, and then across the top. And that's, you know, how you get like that more highlighted look that Civil War and Endgame and all those have. You know, with this, we're kind of trying to make it look a little dirty. So it's really just kind of moving the airbrush around, you know, trying to evenly coat the areas so that it doesn't look so perfect. And then if you want to give it like some, you know, battle damage or weathering, you can do a quick spurt like that, you know, and just quick spurts to kind of give it a little bit more in one particular area. So my goal is really just to kind of strongly knock back the pristine white on the suit. So now I've moved the camera, and now we're going to be focusing more on this side and this particular arm. And I also wanted to show you guys something. So this is how far this goes. This is almost still completely full, and we've already almost weathered the white parts completely. So a little bit goes a long way. So honestly, to weather a complete suit, you'll need probably 1 bottle of isopropyl alcohol, which you will probably use likely about 1/4 of, and 1 small bottle or vial of whatever airbrush ink you want to use. So again, we're just going to kind of lightly coat here, knock this beautiful pristine white down. So we want Cap to have some mileage and some war stories here. And one of the things that I absolutely love about this suit is how different it is compared to the rest. And you know, not only in the sense of like a time period, but just the way it's constructed and the overall look of it. I just wish that we saw more of it, you know, like the first Avenger is such an incredible movie. Although Captain America Winter Soldier is by far my favorite Cap movie, Captain America the First Avenger just always has like a very special place in my heart. As an origin story, and obviously, you know, Trish and I do Cap and Peggy together, so there's just so much to see there with that dynamic. And I just wish that we got to see the suit in action a little bit more, you know, instead of so many little montages throughout the film. I wish that we got a little bit more action, you know, in there, but I digress. So hopefully, I know it's sunny out here today, hopefully you're getting a good look at how we're knocking this nice white back. And I'm really happy with this. This is starting to look really nice. You know, and it's all preference. Some people really like the clean, pristine suit. You know, some people are really into that. I myself always like a little bit of weathering, you know. I think honestly the only suit that I have done now that has no weathering is really my Captain America Winter Soldier suit, just because that is such a perfectly pristine kind of look. So now that we've focused enough on the white, I think, on camera, I might go back and hit a couple areas when I'm all done filming here, but I wanted to show you kind of the rest of it and how I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna give it very, very light dusts. I've already done it once, but I wanna just do it again on camera. We're just gonna kind of now the gray that I'm using is a very subtle gray. It's FW Ink Cool Gray. There is a darker gray, and I've used it in times past. I used it for Endgame, I've used it for Civil War. Endgame and Civil War, I typically use a mixture of the darker gray, and then I also use black completely diluted down to almost a gray, because black comes out very, very strong. So what I've done here is just kind of going through and darkening and giving this some wear and tear and making everything, like I said, not look so perfect and pristine. And for the rest of the color, you know, because it's such a cool gray, you're not really going to notice it quite as much as you would on the white, but it's really just about highlighting, you know, and making sure that that blue doesn't look so perfect. The grays here don't look so perfect, the reds and such. So I'm just kind of going through the whole suit and just giving it little bits of dusting. Now that I've kind of walked you through how I did the white section, how I just kind of dusted the rest of it. I'm just gonna very quickly, briefly show you, you know, the same thing on the pants here. And again, it's really a lot of the same methods. We're not really trying to call particular attention to these three-dimensional padded pattern pieces here. We're just kind of trying to give them a little bit of wear and tear, make the blue look not so perfect. And as I mentioned before, we're gonna wanna make sure that when this is completely dry, we take the suit off the mannequin and make sure that we can reach any hard areas that we couldn't really get into. Like for instance, one to always watch is in the in-between of the pants here. Because as you can see, as much as you can sit here and you can hold this and do that, sometimes the crotch region here, or just like in between some thigh areas, sometimes you'll notice when you put the suit on after having it on the mannequin, you'll have one or two particular areas that look rather clean compared to the rest of it, which you've dusted. So it's always a really good idea to let the suit dry, air out for a little bit, and like let it sit on the mannequin, and then take it off, you know, a few hours later or a day later. You know, put it down on a piece of cardboard on the driveway or in the garage, and just lift any areas, like I said, in between the crotch region, and the thighs is always a good one, in between the armpits and the side area on the upper body. All right, so I have refilled the gray here, and we are all set. And as you can see, it's coming out nice and good. We'll just wash that when we're done. So again, same thing, we're gonna dust this side a little bit, just kind of knock back this blue, hit any areas up top and on the sleeves we forgot. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna finish dusting the suit with the gray. We're just gonna come back and we're gonna dust the back one more time real quick. Kind of get in here. And also, I think I might take these pauldrons off so we can make sure we get in there nice and good. But just wanted to give you guys, I might do some stuff off camera too, just so I can really focus. But again, I just figured this would be an easy video to throw together. Hopefully it would help another captain out there figure out how to weather their suit. And hopefully you guys learned something. And hey, it's another video and another step toward completing the Captain America First Avenger suit. Because it's time crunch. That 10-year anniversary is July 19th, and today is July 7th, so I got 12 days. And I'm doing really good. I'm doing good. The suit is pretty much done at this point. It's really just mold and cast the star. The suit, you know, being weathered was a really big step. The boots have already been repainted. I did not get a chance to film that, admittedly, you know, because of the move and whatnot and packing. I have not gotten to film as many of these videos for this build as I would have liked, but I'm gonna try to do maybe one more for you guys after this one. So as you can see, I've taken off the vest, which also has the shoulder pauldrons attached to it. Since those pieces are pretty much done at this point, what we want to do is even things out. The blue here, and in particularly the white. Now I know a lot of this stuff is going to be covered and you're not going to see it, but as I mentioned, you never want to lean into a pose and find yourself with a perfectly pristine area while the rest of the suit looks very worn and weathered. So again, this is, like I mentioned, making sure that you're going through, taking all things off, all things into consideration, and just evening them out. And as I mentioned, I'm gonna do it here on the mannequin, and then once it's all done, I'm gonna take it off the mannequin and just kind of get in all the spots by hand, kind of fold the fabric over and make sure it is perfectly even. And the thing with weathering like this anyway, is it doesn't need to be uniformic. You don't want it to be uniformic, but you do want it to be even. Like I said, you don't want this to look all weathered and tattered and then the inner piece on the bicep here look really clean. That's gonna look kind of silly. So we're gonna come over here on this side, just kind of dust this. And then, like I said, I'll take it off the mannequin. When it's all dry, even things out. I gotta say, I really like this cool gray. You know, it gives that perfect, like, you know, TFA kind of gray off-white kind of look that the fabric really had in a lot of scenes. You know, mixed in with some of the umber highlights here just to kind of give the suit a little bit of, you know, depth and mileage and wear here. But using black is always, like I said, a really tricky thing. I personally only really like using the black in a mixture with gray highlights also for those endgame Civil War kind of vibes of that more uniformic torso weathering that those suits have. If you're really trying to just kind of knock your whites down, knock your blues down, gray and browns are always the way to go. Brown you have to be very, very careful with as well. I really like this cool gray. I can't honestly endorse it enough. And no, this is not a sponsored video by FW Inc. But sponsor me. Go ahead. Anyway, so yeah, we're just kind of dusting. And like I said, I'm going to, when I'm all done here, and after this sits outside for a little bit, kind of take it off the mannequin, and we'll just make sure that all areas were reached nice and even, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to spin her around just once, just to kind of make sure. I see some little pristine areas here I just want to hit one more time. And again, a lot of this is probably not going to be visible, but like I said, you never know, and you don't want anything to be perfectly clean in one particular area. It just kind of takes away from the realness of it, you know? And again, guys, like I said, I do not take this as gospel. I've seen a lot of people do really awesome weathering. I know Cosplay Chris is really big on, you know, shoe polish and driveway dirt, which is obviously, you know, a cool method too. Especially driveway dirt, you know, just to give that like real factor. I just always be careful, you know, of asphalt and pebbles, that you don't tear your fabric or ruin it. But airbrushing for me is, it's just kind of my method. I really like it. It's what works for me. So I'm gonna dust up one more time here on the collar. Try to make it as informative as possible. I am not, admittedly, the best teacher, you know, but I hope that this is helpful and that you guys learned a little something. And even if you didn't, if you're just here to have fun and watch the first Avenger progress, appreciate it, appreciate the follow. Gonna try to do more of this stuff once we get past our move and set up the new shop in Florida. The new shop is gonna be twice the square footage that I had here in New York, which is exciting. Hoping to set up a whole paint booth. Gonna set up a photography studio area to photograph suits and props, as well as display for collectibles, / office. So definitely we'll have a lot of content hitting the YouTube over the next year. Yeah, so we're gonna throw this on real quick and we'll do a big reveal. All right, so we have it back on here and you can see it's all together. It's nicely weathered. And shout out to Superhero DIY for all the TFA hardware. All those little strap pieces and buckles and things you see. And the shoulder stars, he really has some top-notch 3D files if you guys are able to 3D print. And he also sells 3D prints if you do not have a 3D printer. Show you the back buckle of his. And then the piece that locks onto the belt. Get in here and show you how we've knocked back that perfect white. And I already see a couple little areas, like maybe here and here, just to kind of dust one more time off camera. But just wanted to show you guys what we are looking at, and I'm really happy with this. I think I'm honestly, other than evening one or two areas out, I think I am happy with the weathering. And we are going to move on to molding that star and adding the silver clip on the collar. And we are one step closer to finishing this build. So thanks for following, guys. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.